Good evening. Come on, Feldspar. Feldspar needs some attention. Is being very needy. I want to start off the video by saying that I am so proud of the protesters in downtown Louisville tonight. I personally have panic attacks when I'm at like a party of 10 people, so I'm not down there because I would end up being more trouble than I'm worth. So I want to express support and just say I'm so proud of my city right now. The people here are good, and I'm glad that they're getting things done. So without further ado, let's read The Kingdom Keepers, Chapter 9. When Finn awoke, he hurried into the bathroom, tore off his shirt over his head, and studied the pea-sized red and brown scab with the dime-sized scarlet circle of flesh that surrounded it. The burn hurt something fierce. This was no dream. He winced as he cleaned it with soap and water. "Ah!" he hollered, his cry echoing in the tiled room. "Finn, dear?" His mother called from the hallway. She knocked. "Are you all right?" "Fine." "May I come in?" She let herself in. She was in her nightgown. Dawn had arrived an hour earlier, the pink of the eastern sky now silver with clouds. "Finn, dear?" She studied him in the mirror's reflection from behind, no doubt wondering why he was only half-dressed, his shirt in a ball on the floor. "What's that? What happened, honey?" She laid her warm hand on his shoulder. Finn felt like telling her the truth, but he knew she wouldn't believe him. So what to do? They both were focused on the burn. He couldn't very well say that he'd been in a laser battle with invisible pirates. She cart him off to a mental ward, or worse, their minister. A cigarette, Finn said. He hated smoking more than anything on the planet. In her right mind, his mother knew this about him. Finn had once walked across a restaurant and boldly asked a smoker to put out his cigarette so that his own hamburger didn't have to taste like an ashtray. This at 7 years old. But his mother wasn't thinking right. To her, seeing was believing. "You? What?" she gasped. He felt awful, both for lying to her and for using smoking as his excuse. He'd crushed her. "Mom." "Who? How'd you get it?" "Mom." "And don't you lie to me." He tried to think of how to explain this without lying, because not to lie was one promise he had made to his parents that he hated having to break. "I didn't smoke it, Mom. A cigarette burned me." He bent and picked up his shirt off the floor and held it up to show her. The hole was obvious enough. It was this guy, a bully, you know. She collected herself. "A bully. Who did this to you, Finn?" "Pirate," he heard himself mumble. "What?" He's called Pirate because he's so mean. He should be arrested." "No, it's nothing." "Nothing? That's a criminal act, burning someone, Finn." She spun him around to face her. "Breathe." "What?" "I want to smell your breath." "Mom." "Now, young man." He breathed toward her groping nose. She blinked rapidly. "So after all we talked about, you sneaked out anyway." He'd forgotten about that part of his explanation. Well, she brightened. Her eyes went soft and her eyebrows danced. He thought that this was the way she looked before she cried. "Oh, Finn. Thank you for not lying to me. It's so important not to lie." She added matter-of-factly, "Give me his name, please. His real name right now." "I don't know his real name. Just some kid. I don't think he meant to bring me. It just scared me a little. It's just one of those grown-up things, you know? She often talked to him about grown-up things. She held him at arm's length now, studying him thoughtfully. He didn't like the look on her face. This was her best imitation of a lie detector. Did you sleep in your clothes? The dark cloud in her eyes concerned him. This is the same shirt. These are the same clothes you wore yesterday, for goodness sake. As she pieced it together, Finn tried to think of something to distract her, but she was too quick for him. I don't remember that hole in your shirt at dinner. Hands beneath the table, Mom. Finn. I can't help it if you didn't see it. I should have known. With your going to bed so early last night, she was thinking aloud. We can't tell your father. He breathed a huge sigh of relief. She eyed his wound. But this did happen to you last night, didn't it? After you went to sleep. He had no choice but to nod. Being grounded for life was better than continuing to lie to her. How late were you out? She asked, headed for his bedroom window to inspect it like a detective. Midnight. This was the truth. How'd you do it? Your father and I were downstairs until 11 or later. Finn's window looked down on an area of the driveway in front of the garage. There was no roof below him, just a tiny apron of flower bedding, and then the driveway's black asphalt. He had a brain freeze trying to think of a way to explain his nocturnal escape, knowing from previous experience that the more of a story he made up, the more difficult it would be to keep it straight. Then he remembered the room's window box. The fire ladder, he said. His grandfather had installed a chain fire ladder several years before. In the event of an emergency, he was to block the bottom crack of his door with his clothes or bedding and wait for instructions from the firemen to use the stowaway ladder. He promised a long time ago to never use the ladder to sneak out. I see, she said, clearly disappointed in him. If you have to ground me, I understand, Finn said, trying to subtly encourage her to do so. If grounded, he could spend more time in his room without raising suspicions. More time in his room meant more chances to sleep, and sleep meant crossing over. If he napped, he would cross over to the park during the day? So many questions to answer. Show me, his mother ordered. Show you what? The ladder. How you got down there. Finn looked out the window and felt a little dizzy. It looked about 100 feet down. His mother knew he was afraid of heights. You want me to go down the ladder? He knew she couldn't possibly want him to do that. It looked like a death wish. Glancing out the window, she said, No, it looks dangerous to me. It is dangerous. She put her hand down onto the window box's lid. He was in big trouble if she opened up the window box. That fire ladder was buried under a pile of unused toys that went back years. Probably dust an inch thick. How would he explain any of that? He hurried to stop her. I messed up, Mom. I'm sorry. You're definitely grounded. Yes, ma'am. And you're not to use the ladder except in the case of an emergency. I need your word on that, she added hotly. And I'll expect you to keep it. I promise. He hung his head, feeling a mixture of shame and excitement. He poked at his wound as if it hurt a lot more than it did. Now let's get that cleaned up, she said. And that is chapter 9. I think the next time we'll be doing stories is on Sunday. I can't remember exactly, but I will definitely make updates to my various and assorted social media just to make sure, and I will see you next time for nighttime stories. Thank you so much.